Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Tennis Menu's US Open daily shows. It's been a big day of tennis, all the big guns seemingly getting through unscathed, and well, there's plenty to talk about as we move closer to the second week at Flushing Meadows. I'm your host, Val Weber. We're here for the tennismenu.com, where you can find anything you need to know about the world of tennis. It's seriously unbelievable. Drills, articles, anything you need to know to make your game better and to keep in touch with all the best tennis news, the tennismenu.com. It is all there. But this show wouldn't be this show without this man, because he's got the best analysis in the business, and it doesn't get much better than listening to him talk about coaching. And his name is Marc Safoulis, and we've started the hashtag Marc for PM. It's going strong. I'm the only one that's probably said it, but we're getting there. How are you, mate?
I'm going really well. PM, I'm not sure. I'm not intellectual enough to be able to run anything apart from the change in my pocket. So we'll keep it at that for now. But it's an interesting time we're at, and the tennis today has been absolutely incredible. And still at the moment, it's still on with Tsitsipas and Coric playing incredible tennis. Yeah. Phenomenal results overnight, especially for Aussies with Jordan Thompson getting through to his fourth round, which I know we'll touch on shortly. But I'm really excited for today. Hopefully we can cover the tennis and tell everyone what's going on at the US Open.
Yeah, I'm absolutely stoked for Jordan Thompson. He's had a couple of heartbreaking losses at slams, and one of which at the Australian Open this year against Fabio Fognini in 5 sets. The fat shamer, we're going to start calling Fabio after his comments about Milos Raonic. But the results so far today, and Denis Shapovalov down from the brink, a breakdown in the 4th set. He's come back and beaten Taylor Fritz 3-6, 6-3, 4-6, 7-6, 6-2 in a big win. Jan-Lennard Struff went with Djokovic for the first half a set, and then Struff just fell away, and it turned into a repeat of what happened in Cincinnati last week. Djokovic winning 3-3 and 1. Adrian Mannarino taking the first set against Alexander Zverev 7-6 before the German ran away with that one 6-4, 6-2, 6-2 in 4 sets. I want to talk about that one because there was a bit of a delay in that match due to Mannarino being a close contact of Benoit Paire. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Pablo Carreño Busta over Ricardas Barranca 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. And the man whose name we brought up a couple of days ago for being unbelievable, Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, defeats Cam Norrie in 4 sets, 7-6, 6-4, 4-6, 6-2, 6-1. That's a big win for the Spaniard, who seemingly for me prefers clay, but to get through to a 4th round at the US Open is an amazing achievement for him. Corentin Moutet over Dan Evans in 4, 4-6, 6-3, 7-6, 7-6. David Goffin destroyed Filip Krajinovic 6-1, 7-6, 6-4, and Jordan Thompson, as we mentioned, over Mikhail Kukushkin 7-5, 6-4, 6-1. Big results there on the men's side of things, but Denis Shapovalov, Mark, was the big one for me this morning. Getting through in 5, we penciled that one in yesterday as a match that we're really looking forward to. And now all of a sudden, it's produced a 5-set, 3-hour, 26-minute epic. And Shapovalov was down and out, but credit to him, he came back and fought off.
Yeah, correct. I mean, Dennis actually wasn't playing so well. Fritz was all over him up until that 4th set. He was up 5-3. Fritz, he couldn't close it out. Shapovalov got a little lucky, got back into the match, and then from there it was just all systems go. He broke to get back to 5-4. He turned and looked to his mum, which I thought was interesting. His mum's his coach. He looked at his mum, and his mum just sort of gave him this little bit of a, "Okay, son, you're okay here." And he just from that point on, it was insane the way he played. And 2 unbelievably talented young men. I think Shapovalov's only 21 and Fritz is 23. Young men, and they are coming pretty hard. And both players are exceptional. But great win by Shapovalov, who was down and out pretty much in that 4th set, and to be able to fight back was incredible.
Yeah, amazing. And I want to ask you about that because we've got Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's coached by his father. Denis Istomin, famously coached by his mum after he beat Djokovic in the 2017 Oz Open. I remember the speech, and he goes, "Well, I'd like to thank mum," up in the stands. And it's absolutely fantastic. But you see that sort of tennis parent and pupil sort of coaching relationship is fairly prevalent in the sport. There's not many other sports that have such an intricacy like that, where the parent actually coaches the pupil. I think gymnastics is another one, and dancing. But tennis, it's sort of strung to the forefront or thrust into the forefront of the media because it is such a global and popular sport. We've seen it work. We've seen it fail. What are your thoughts on it? And is it wise to possibly bring in another party like what Shapovalov has done with Mikhail Yuzhny to sort of give that extra perspective, keeping the parent there, but having that extra eye that's been on the tour?
Yeah, it's interesting because you look back and you look at Serena and Venus were coached by their dad. Capriati back in the day was coached by her dad. And you look at Andy Murray, had his mum bring him up as a youngster. I think there comes a time where you do need that extra voice and that different point of view. Obviously Tsitsipas definitely takes his anger out on his dad, but
well, we saw this morning.
Yeah, he was going pretty bananas on the court at his old man, and I think at the end of the day, like the relationship is strong between, I guess, parent and child. But how much do you listen to your parent when it comes to information? Now, it is quite challenging. A lot of these guys have done a great job to do what they have to get their kids to this level. But I do think there's case to be able to put someone else in with you into your team, to be able to have a different perspective on the game. And obviously, Mikhail Yuzhny jumping into the Shapovalov team creates that. And also, he was a top 50 player as well. So,
and got to world number 6.
There you go. Top 10 player in the world, which has, a history of being able to walk in his shoes. So, look, it's an interesting topic. And I think, I've seen players really abuse their parents, and obviously Tsitsipas is one of them. But one thing I feel, and I've been on the back end of a few abusive comments in the stands, I think you can't take it to heart, though. And I think that's the hardest thing is, if you're a parent, how much do you take to heart, and how much do you go, look, they're just venting frustration? And it does happen a hell of a lot on the tour, but you can't take it personally if that's the case. But, I personally wouldn't coach my kids. I feel like I want to be dad and not coach. And I've made that pretty clear to my kids. And one of our fellow tennis menu contributors, George, coaches my girls when they're down there, and I go down there and watch and have fun. So, there's a fine line between coach and parent, but I would definitely steer away from the coach-parent relationship in my situation. But it has worked in the past. It has failed, but there's no doubt it's a contentious issue.
Yeah, well, there's been a few notable fails, especially with Jelena Dokic and also Mirjana Lucic-Baroni. So there's been a few notable ones, but the success ones are the ones that we like to look at and show the strong relationship between parent and child. But another question I want to ask you before we get on to more US Open results and more of the women's action as well. Changing coaches throughout your career, we often see that happen with a lot of big players, and it's very rare that players keep the same coaches throughout their careers. Is that a case of just you get to a point where there's only so much that coach can take you forward and you need to get some more perspective? Or is it a case of sometimes things just don't work out? Like we saw Federer's gone through a few, like with Tony Roach, then to Stefan Edberg, and then Severin Luthi and Ivan Ljubicic have kind of taken the reins. We've seen Djokovic went from Marion Vida back to Boris Becker, and then some spiritual healer, and then back to Marion Vida. And then we've seen and it's happened with a few other people. Leighton Hewitt went from a few different coaches as well. So talk us through that and why players do make the change so often, and what good can come of it, but also the negatives as well.
It's a really interesting topic because we do see players change a lot, but you do see a lot that stay the same, and the consistency is what creates consistency in the athlete too. Now there can be stalemates in the relationship as it goes along. Don't forget, as a coach, when you're traveling on tour, you are sometimes if you're a male traveling with a male athlete, you're staying in the same room. You are eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. You're at the courts, on the court together. You're dissecting matches. You're spending every minute of the day with this player. How long would that last if you're in a relationship with someone? Let's say, for example, you and your wife work together, but you work together, you eat all your meals together, you're in the same house, you spend every minute of the day together. It can become stale. And it's important to, I guess, the best players are able to maintain separation and be able to be their own people. The coach and the player are both their own person, and they have their own space and time. And I think that's a real key to keeping a relationship. It's any relationship, whether it's, life or whether it's coaching. I think you need to have your own space and time. And these relationships do break down because there's so much going on. It's high pressure. There's a lot of money involved. and the relationship can come to an end. And or there could be the times where one person has taken them all the way to a certain point, and they just need a fresh set of eyes just to get them to another level if they've had a bit of a lull or a plateau in their career. So there's multiple reasons why it does happen. It does happen more on the WTA than the ATP Tour. You see a lot of change, and the coaches that coach on the WTA Tour generally make the commitment to be a career coach and traveling coach, and they go from player to player if that's the case. In my situation, I tried to do my traveling as a coach that did bits and pieces of travel, but I'm mainly focused on staying in Australia to coach, and had my work here. And I didn't really get caught up in, if I lose my job, I'll just go to the next player. I was just sort of like, no, you know what? I'll keep my distance, but I'll do bits and pieces of travel. And that to me worked really well, and it created long-term relationships with a lot of my athletes.
Yeah, no, and that's great insight. And I love to hear about all that and the reasons why sort of people make that change. And you're right, it could be for a variety of reasons, and you don't want things to be overly stale, and you want to keep the relationships as well. But you do see a lot on the WTA where I think it seems from the outside looking in like it's a little bit more volatile between the player and the coach. And sometimes you've got to be a little bit more ruthless as a coach, and players don't like that as much. But it's the same on the men's as well. Like, it just depends on the person.
Interesting on that point, Val, the biggest thing about the player-coach relationship as well is the player pays the coach. Now, you're employed, the coach is actually an employee of the athlete. And this is where it becomes a little sticky, is that if the coach says the wrong thing, you get the flick. There's no contracts in place. It's generally a lot of the time very airy-fairy. And it's like, come with me for 6 months or come with me for a year, and they start having bad results and they give you the flick. So the coach sometimes is treading on thin ice a lot of the time. And you've got to be really cautious about what you say and how you say it. And then also that then gets the point of, if I go pretty hard, which I think I need to sometimes as an athlete, am I going to lose my job? So these are the things that coaches need to weigh up. Players are paying the coach. Do I need to fork out money? No, I don't. So there's a little bit of tension in the air all the time. If the player doesn't pay the coach at whatever time or whatever it might be, or there's bonuses involved, and then the player's losing, the coach doesn't get the bonuses, so they're not making as much money, so they're upset. So there's a little bit of that going on as well on the tour, and it is quite a challenging situation to keep the relationship pretty stable when finances come involved in that as well.
Well, is it worth trying to get a contract written up between yourself and possibly the players' management, and trying to work something out there, or is that just too hard basket?
Generally, the bigger players do that, but when you're looking at players outside the 30, 40, 50, 60 in the world, maybe, it can be hard because of the fluctuation of results.
Yeah.
Like coach may be asking for a certain amount per week plus some bonuses, and you've got to pay their accommodation, their airfares, their food. And if you drop outside the top 100, your finances drop, so the player doesn't want to commit to a long-term relationship. So it is a challenge. It's definitely a topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's a big tightrope, I guess, and it's I'm glad I'm not in that coaching sphere and trying to rely on maintaining results for a player, because that's way too stressful. I'll take this line of work any day of the week. Yep. I've got such a respect for what you guys do. It's unbelievable. But moving on to a little bit of news, and Adrian Mannarino and Alexander Zverev, their match got delayed by a fair way today, and it's due to the fact that Mannarino was a close contact with Benoit Paire, who, of course, tested positive for COVID-19, and Mannarino said that, look, it was very difficult because he was getting ready for his match. He had to pass his coach the phone to try and handle everything. The New York State was kind of very aggressive and didn't really want him to go on court considering what happened. And the USTA and ATP officials were kind of just saying, all right, we're going to do whatever we can to get you onto the court today. Obviously, they did. He played Zverev, lost in 4, tried to keep prepared for the match. But he said that he gave his coach a lot of the phone and just said, okay, you deal with it. Is this something that is this something normal for what a coach would kind of expect? Because wouldn't that be more of a management type thing? It doesn't seem like it'd be a coach's job to sort of to deal with that sort of stuff while the player goes and keeps fresh. You'd need your coach for that, wouldn't you?
The coach does a few roles. So you got a coach, and sometimes you got to be the fitness coach, and sometimes you got to be the mental coach, and sometimes you got to be the manager, and you got to book the courts, and you got to get the practice partners, and you got to tidy up all the crap and deal with some of the press and keep the people away from the player. And there's so many different roles a coach sometimes plays in a team. And obviously with the bigger players, they've got a big team around them. But In the smaller teams, you generally, can't afford to have all those people. So, it'll be the coach and the player, and that's about it. And the coach takes on a lot of responsibility. So it is normal, absolutely. Dealing with a lot of crap. And as a coach, you want your player to be in the best mindset. So you take those roles. So I'm happy to take a phone call. If my player needs to go prepare, hey, go and do your job. Go and get yourself ready. I'll take care of this. Give me the phone. Let me sort it out. You get yourself ready and calm yourself down. And that generally happens a lot of the time. The coach will take a bullet for the player and allow the player to be fresh and ready to go.
Brilliant. That's very selfless work by your folk, Mark. I love that. But moving on to the women's results this morning, Naomi Osaka. Well, we mentioned this one yesterday and said that this is going to be a danger match for her. 2 hours and 33 minutes, she overcame Marta Kostyuk 6-3, 6-7, 6-2. Petra Kvitova, the final women's match, just wrapped up just prior to us going to air. She defeated Jessica Pegula 6-4, 6-3. Petra Martic, I didn't realize she was seeded 8, but she is proving me wrong. She has gone through over Varvara Gracheva 6-3, 6-3. Angie Kerber looking ominous 6-3, 6-4 over Lee. Well, completely have blanked on what her first name, Anne Lee. I remembered it the other day, but completely blanked on what her first name was. But we've got there in the end. So Kerber goes through. Yulia Putintseva goes through as well. Caro Garcia couldn't defeat Jennifer Brady, who is, as you said the other day, looking really ominous. Shelby Rogers through. Annette Kontaveit through. Christina McNally is also through, as is Elise Mertens. She's looking quite good. Semi-finalist in Cincinnati last week, and Iga Swiatek of Poland, she is through as well. So the women's draw, there were pretty much no upsets today. I didn't really see, like, even the Brady and Garcia match, I didn't really see that as a match that I saw that as a match that could go either way. I wouldn't really call Brady winning that an upset. She is seeded and Garcia isn't. But after Garcia beat Pliskova, she would be pretty disappointed at the fact that she couldn't go and push on in the tournament. Is that something as a coach that you try and instill in your player, or try and console them maybe afterwards and say, look, is it a time where you have to really just be honest and say you should have gone further in this tournament? You took out the top player. What happened?
That's an interesting conversation, because one of my big beliefs is that no matter who you play, and you go on the court, there's two people on the court. You've got a 50% chance, regardless of what their ranking is, what their name is, etc. And I think every match you've got to look at like that. And as a coach, I deal with it that way. I talk a lot about you go on the court and you have a 50% chance regardless. Now, you could be much higher ranked than the player you're playing. It's still 50% regardless of their ranking. It's a two-horse race. So every single match needs to be treated individually. You need to respect the opponent no matter who you're playing. And do I think you should have gone further and have that conversation? Probably not. No, I think it's an interesting one, because every player and any player on any given day can beat each other. That's the level of the game we're at. It's whether or not you can deal backing it up day in, day out, match in, match out. That's the real test. And we talked about it on our show yesterday. The difference between your best and worst tennis needs to be very, very close together. And if it isn't, things like this will happen. Garcia will beat a great player, and then down here is her probably not her best tennis. And the difference is Brady's playing real close together. And that's the difference at the moment with Brady and the rest of the girls. She's playing really consistent. Same as Osaka. She's showing some really good form. And Elise Mertens, you did mention, just really going along nicely, going in the background of everything, playing more on the outside courts. And I think it's a little bit of an interesting one with Mertens, because she's backed it up year in, year out and getting some good results, especially at the US Open.
And she's one that the difference between her best and worst tennis is not very far. It is as close as that. And she's since probably 3 years ago, she's been inside the top 20.
Yeah.
And that is why she's having great results.
It's whether or not her best tennis is good enough to win a Grand Slam. And that is the challenge for someone like Mertens, where, Osaka's best tennis is she'll blow you off the court. Serena's the same. It's just whether or not Mertens can take her game to another level. I think she's probably, can get to about an 8 out of 10 quality-wise, whereas a Serena's a 10 out of 10 when she's at her best.
But I think the speed of the courts is something that's going to help Elise Mertens, because if she comes up against someone like an Osaka, like a Kvitova, she can use their pace of shot against them and she can try and counterpunch, try and change direction, and she can try and sort of negate them and use her quick movement as something that's going to hurt them. And that could be a reason as to why she might do well at this tournament. If she can win a Grand Slam, this is probably the time to do it.
And you're speaking like a real true coach here, Val. So you're taking my role really well. Definitely, she can absorb the speed really well. And that's one of her strengths of a player. And she can move well. And let's see what happens from here on. I mean, as we always talk about in the women's game, it's very, very hard to predict. And, as you said today, all the notables got through. Let's see what happens over the next few days, because it's going to be a really interesting quarterfinal stage if all these top players are getting through.
It sure is. It's very, very exciting. Before we do wrap up, I want to ask you one more question. It seems as though the players that have been playing big 5-set matches in one match have struggled to overcome that. And what does that have to do? So we've had Andy Murray, who won a massive match against Yoshihito Nishioka. Then you've got Kukushkin, who won a huge match against Christian Garin. Garin won a 5-setter in his first round. It's happened a few times throughout this tournament. I'm not sure the exact numbers about their next match. I'll do a little bit of research on that for tomorrow's show. But what's the reason for that? Do you reckon it's this US Open? It's been more prevalent that players have been failing to back up after a 5-set match, and what could it be just because of COVID, lack of match practice?
100%. I think there's a big COVID factor in this. No match play, no 5-set matches, since the Australian Open for some of them, and before that for others. How prepared are they? Some of them were in lockdown for a lot longer than others and couldn't get the time on court. And it's really hard to back up when you haven't got the work in behind you. No matter how much recovery you do, if you haven't put the work in, if you haven't done the hours on court, if you haven't played the matches, it's very, very hard to simulate. And that's definitely one of the reasons. There could be individual factors as well, but that to me is one of the big reasons.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I can't wait to see how Shapovalov backs up against a brick wall in David Goffin for the next round. So that's exciting for 2 days' time. But tomorrow we have a big, big morning of tennis, and it's JJ Wolf, who's gone the real 1980s look, hasn't he, Mark? He's got the mullet. He's wearing Lotto. Don't see that very often. So he's gone real old school with his look. And him and Francis Tiafoe, the only men left on the men's side of the draw from who put at the start of the tournament. Those two would be the last ones left. He'll take on Daniil Medvedev, who looks in ominous form. I'm excited about this one, though. Sloane Stephens against Serena Williams. That is two great champions of this game, two US Open champions. Very similar game styles, very sort of hit it and quit it type players, and try and really smack you off the court. Madison Keys against Aliza Cornet. Dominic Thiem v. Marin Cilic. This one has the capabilities to be an epic. They always show matches from previous years that have gone the distance, and Dominic Thiem and Rafa from the 2018 quarterfinals is constantly shown on the US Open socials. I've got a feeling that this one is going to be one of them, because I am absolutely just bursting for this match. Really excited. Maria Sakkari against Amanda Anisimova, both young guns of the game. Roberto Bautista Agut against Vasek Pospisil. I hope RBA can get through. He's one of the good guys in tennis, and it'd be great to see him continue. Martin Fucsovics against Francis Tiafoe. Really interesting to see how Tiafoe will back up after a 4-setter and a 5-setter. Fucsovics in a 5-setter over Grigor Dimitrov in his last outing. Victoria Azarenka against Iga Swiatek, who played today, so she's going to have to back up again tomorrow. Ons Jabeur against Sophia Kenin. That's an interesting matchup, and we'll see how Kenin goes, but Jabeur has been playing some really scintillating tennis. Matteo Berrettini against Casper Ruud, Felix Auger-Aliassime against Corentin Moutet, Salvatore Caruso against Andrei Rublev, and Alex de Minaur against Karen Khachanov. I'm excited about that one. Quick preview. Who do you reckon wins, Demon or Karen?
Oh, I'm going to have to say the Demon.
Really?
I think he's primed. Watching him play the other day, his speed across the court. He's got the capabilities of deflecting ball speed. Loves the faster court. I'm gonna put it on Demon. I know he's going to go in as the underdog for sure, but I think he's a real good opportunity, or it's a good opportunity for him to get through to the next round. So yeah, I'm excited for that match as well. Some absolute epic matches coming up tomorrow. I literally can't wait to get up nice and early on Father's Day and spend my whole time watching the tennis in the morning. And it's a really exciting time for tennis. It's back. It's back better than ever. Some epic matches going on. Great to see the best players out there playing at this time of the tournament and getting through to the second week. And just love spending my time with you, Val. It's probably where I'm going.
This is absolutely fantastic. Tomorrow you get to spend Father's Day with me. Who could ask for anything better? Just continuing quickly, Donna Vekic in action, Elise Mertens as well, and Sorana Sestay against Katarina Muchova as well. So plenty of tennis to get through. Marc Safoulis, thank you very much for your efforts today. You're on song as usual, and that Marc for PM hashtag is going to continue well into 2020.
I'll take it. Maybe I don't know what we'll do if I became PM, but maybe open up tennis courts a little bit earlier in Australia instead of being in lockdown. That'd be my first thing. But apart from that, I think I'll just stick to being a dad and coaching a bit of tennis. But thanks for your time, Val. And yeah, looking forward to day 6. Will be incredible.
I know, it's gone quickly, but one thing you can do as PM is start rigging results to go our way to our favourite players in tournaments. That would be absolutely fantastic, banning certain people from the country. No, that would be great. But thank God we don't have that power. But Marc, again, thank you. And remember, you can follow the Tennis Menu on social media at the Tennis Menu on Instagram and Twitter, and like us on Facebook as well for all the best tennis content, drills, quotes, anything inspirational. And we've got our blogs and articles and videos on thetennismenu.com for all you need to know about the world of tennis to improve your game, or just if you're interested in the world of coaching, it's all on there. Marc, Nick and George doing a wonderful job. And I've been Val Febo. Plenty of tennis to come, and on day 6 of the US Open. It's very exciting. We're getting into the business end of the tournament. The first weekend almost done. We'll tune in tomorrow.